if you want to throw this really, really hard, consistently in the strike zone and not get hurt, there are 5 different things you need to do to ensure that you are set up to do that. Those 5 things are: number 1, to root your toes and to make sure your feet are glued into the ground. Number 2, you got to set your knee up. Number 3, you got to tighten your stomach. Number 4, you got to visualize and see visually what you're looking at. And then number 5, you have to breathe with conviction. In this video, I want to break down rooting your toes and gluing your feet. If you've ever heard doing things from the ground up, that's where we're starting with. We're starting with the ground up. So if you ever have to do this before a drill, before a bullpen, or in the game, or when you're playing catch, you know to start from the ground up and go in order. So starting with your feet and rooting your toes, the concept of rooting comes from the yoga world, where you're literally just spreading your toes out like the roots in the ground to create a stronger foundation. You think of a tree being really, really strong, it's because the roots are really spread out, creating a really strong and sturdy tree. So if you think of yourself as a tree and you spread your toes out as best you can, and when you first start at this, a lot of people are no good, but you try to spread out your toes as much as you possibly can. So when you come set, you are rooted into the ground. Also, after that, you need to make sure that in addition to the rooting, that you are keeping your whole foot in the ground. If you imagine 3 different points, there is the ball of your foot underneath your big toe. Just right across from that, underneath your pinky, would be the other point. And then the last point would be under your heel. If you think of keeping all 3 of those in contact with the ground, just like when you squat, then you are going to be better situated, better balanced, and more rooted completely into the ground when you perform a drill. Another thing that can take into consideration is that if you look at most shoes, the heel is bigger than underneath the toes. So it already sets you into your toes. When you do any type of running, when you do jogging, when you do skipping, when you do high knees and butt kicks, when you do all your lateral work, when you are pivoting and stealing, in almost anything you do in any sport, you are into your toes. Rarely are you into your heels. If you've been taught how to squat well, then you will know that you should have weight into your heels and that your butt should be going backwards or your hips should be going backwards. That's the same movement pattern for pitchers, that when they are rooted and their whole foot is in the ground, they then keep their whole foot in the ground. Understanding that everything you do, including the shoes you wear, is going to want to put you into your toes. So don't be surprised if when you look in your video, you are actually into your toes, because those shoes prop your heels up and put you into those toes. And all of those things you do, including my least favorite athlete to work with in this building, hockey players, those guys are completely lateral, completely into their toes the entire time. And then you bring them in here, or you bring them into the weight room and you tell them to stay into their heels. And it's like, well, that's not what I've been doing for the last 5 hours or 5 days or 5 months or 5 years if they're hockey players. So it can become a tough task, especially if you're not aware of what your shoes are doing and what all the sports and all your warm-ups are doing, to then ask of you as a pitcher to, when you come set, make sure there's still weight in your heels and to maintain that. But if you can do that, that alone can help your consistency in your mechanics, that can help your velocity, and it can sure as heck help your command and your overall health for when you are pitching. To make sure that you get all 4 of the other steps, be sure to subscribe to this page so you can see all of them.